Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with my card for this week's color throwdown challenge, and I'm using pattern paper. Again, if you're newer to my videos, yeah, I love pattern paper. I hoard it. That used to be the bulk of my channel way back in the beginning, like, you know, previous lifetime ago. And now I mostly hoard it, but I'm working on it. You know, I got a lot of it. I'm getting buried in it. It's time to use it. So the color throwdown challenge is just for fun. I always post a link to it in my blog post, which is directly linked below the video. So you can like hop on over to there if you want to check it out. It's open to anyone. We do it just for fun. There's no like restrictions in that sense. You know, it's just fun to play along and get inspiration. So I've had, like many things, the mushroom stems wafer die set that I've done multiple videos on so far because for whatever reason, I'm just obsessed with them. I don't know what it is about them. I'm kind of considering them, they're like a neutral accessory, I guess. Like they just work for so many things. So I pulled those out along with several other wafer dies, all of which I'll link to. And this pattern paper, which came out some time ago, and I actually have used a little bit of it. This is Honeybee's Marvelous Moments pattern paper. And the colors, some of the colors in there were perfect for this challenge. And I was like, ooh, that one kind of polka dotty type paper. I was like, that'd be really perfect for the mushroom tops. So I chose all patterns that I wanted to use for these different wafer dies. I've got one of the nested domed arches wafer dies. I have the FIDDLY leaf wafer die. I have a CZ design nested tag. Like this is gonna be another one of those like bunch of die cuts type of cards, which I quite enjoy. It's just fun. So I also pulled out a bit of Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. That's what I used there for the little FIDDLY leaf. And I'm just using my little Griffin EMPRESS mini. I showed this in a previous video. I've actually had this for 2 or 3 months now. I'm not sure. I have been I use a lot, as you can see by the cutting plate there on the top. I have used this a lot and really happy with it. This is the one that stays on my desk. All my other, because I have more than one. I do this as a job. All my other die cut machines, I don't show very often on camera because they're big and it's a pain to move them back and forth. And if I'm being totally honest, I usually have like plates from lunch sitting on top of them and all kinds of other random things and snacks and just, you know, it's a thing. So anywho, like I always do, I try to do like pretty much all my die cutting at once because again, I can then move the machine out of the way, get things out of the way, and get on to the next part. So with the little mushrooms, I die cut the tops with that pattern paper, and then I just used some of Simon's heavyweight white cardstock that will be for the rest of the mushrooms. And I decided to do some ink blending on what'll be kind of like the underside, you know, the mushrooms, but I didn't have quite the right colors. So I'm just going to mix 2 different colors. I'm going to add, right now I'm adding Fired Brick Distress Oxide ink. I'm just using a little mini blending brush. And then on top of that, I'm adding Victorian Velvet just to soften it a little bit. Because I didn't want, like, Fired Brick is a pretty intense, orangey sort of a red, really. And I didn't want it to be quite that for, like, to go with the pattern paper and whatnot. And adding Victorian Velvet on top, it made this really pretty shade that I was like, oh, man, you know. I have no qualms, you know, mixing colors. You guys see me do that with like pastes and different things. And it's something I've done for years. But doing that with inks, anytime I do that, I was like, oh, it'd be nice to just already have this in an ink pad. Although you technically can. You can just use reinkers. And Ranger does sell empty like blank ink pads. I haven't gone that far yet, but tempting, very tempting. So anywho, after I did my little bit of blending, I did antique linen oxide just on the stems, just on the side. And then when I adhered everything together, I adhered the pattern paper die cuts to the cardstock. You can technically skip that, but The one thing with working with pattern paper is it is thinner than cardstock. And I like, the thickness and the weight and the sturdiness of cardstock. So if I've already got the die cuts, why not just use them? So I adhered the pattern paper to the die cut pieces and then assembled my little mushrooms. So they got their cute little polka dot tops to them. And yeah, I love this die set. You guys will be seeing it in many future videos because I love it. I reach for it and I have so many ideas. I need more time. So after I did that, I also pulled out the Leaf Edges background stamp. I've used this in a couple videos. It's been super popular, rightfully so, because it's fabulous. And I stamped just some more smooth white cardstock, just an A2 panel with that antique linen and one of the cling leaf edges. And I put it in my splatter box, and I'm using antique linen distress oxide spray. You always want to make sure with the oxide sprays to shake them up really, really well because the pigments do settle. And I sprayed it. And like I tend to do, I have a very heavy hand, and I was like, nope, this is not the look I was going for. Cardstock has two sides. We're just going to flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side, but I'm not going to spray it as heavily. I wanted there to be more white space. I didn't like how I basically covered the entire background with the spray. So I did the same thing. I had put the stamp face up on my work surface, inked it up with the antique linen distress oxide, pressed my cardstock into it. You could totally use your MISTI stamp positioner, anything like that to stamp. Again, it just depends on my mood. I wasn't worried about perfection with this because I was adding the spray. And this time I sprayed it much lighter and I was much happier with it. So after I did that, I trimmed this down just to be slightly smaller than an A2 card front. So this will be 4 by 5 1/4. And then I did a little bit more die cutting. I pulled out a sentiment from the Greetings Trio wafer die set. There's 3 different greetings in the set, but I chose the thanks one. And the outline I had die cut from white cardstock. And then I just quickly blended that Victorian velvet ink over the background. Just, again, to bring it all together. Could have die cut pattern paper with that. It would have looked really cute too. There's something about Victorian velvet, and I say this every time I use it because I don't pull it out very often, and then every time I do, I'm reminded, like, what a pretty color it is. Like, I love. But I say that about every distress color. When you've got 72, 71, however many, we got a lot. There's one neutral left that he still has to release. But if he wants to release another dozen more, 2 dozen more, I would get them all. You can never have too many colors. Anyway. I ink blended that background. The word thanks I die cut 3 times from scraps of white cardstock. I'm using my craft tacky glue here. I've shown this in a bunch of videos. I have this is one of the little Gina K bottles that come in a pack of 3. And a few months ago, I got it and I put craft tacky glue in it, and so far so good. It's been working great. It doesn't clog because craft tacky glue is thicker than a lot of the glues on the craft market. I know for some they struggle with it. If you already have craft tacky glue, get these bottles and try it out. It's because the bottle is very easy. It's more squishy. It's the type of plastic it's made out of. It's much more squishy and easier to dispense the glue. And yeah, so far so good. I like it. So I use that little bottle for like my detail adhering. So after I had done all that, I had taken this one strip of pattern paper, tore the edge to give it that little extra something because, I've just been dabbling here and there. On the weekend, I took a class with Paula Cheney, who is the creative director. She's in charge of like the ideology and the makers for Tim Holtz, and she designs products and everything else. Anyway, took a class with her, and it was all like mixed media, of course, because that is what she just excels at. And yeah, it's going to be in the back of my mind for a while. And I was like, I do mixed media now. So I thought I'd share that. You can follow my social medias. I've shared a few just like selfies with people. I haven't like posted many. I didn't take very many pictures. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting glue everywhere and inky and all the fun things. And yeah, mixed media, I've always been fascinated by it. I just, every once in a while, I'll dip my toes in it. You guys have seen, I'll do a card here and there. And I love it. I really do. It just, I jump around from everything, you know, all the different styles, all the different things. It's just fun. It's all fun. So I used a bit of twine on that little tag that I had die cut from the pattern paper, tied that in a bow. I glued that down. I glued my little arch down. I glued my little FIDDLY leaf. I love that it's called that. FIDDLY leaf wafer die. I die cut that little die cut I adhered down. The big mushroom, I decided to add some thin foam squares to, just to give it that little bit of dimension. So I popped those onto this, and then I'm going to adhere that. And I'm going to do the same thing with the sentiment. I'm going to add some foam squares to that to give that a little bit of dimension as well. So once I get the little mushroom in place, I can line up my sentiment, and then I know what overlaps the stem there. So that's why I've got my thumb there, just to keep me from putting foam squares where they don't need to be. Peel off the backing, stick this into place, and then I was like, I need some little hearts. And I'd already pulled out the little wafer die set. This set is another oldie but goodie, absolute favorite. This is the mini hearts wafer die set that I'm going to use. Literally, I think this was one of the first like Simon exclusive brand purchases I bought. Like, I've been purchasing from Simon Says Stamp since, goodness, 15 plus years. I forget. It's been a long time. But then when they started doing like their own brand of things, I remember like getting my first little, you know, wafer dies and stamp sets, and this was one of them, and I still use it. It's still available. It's been out for a decade. I love it because it's got different shapes, like 3 different shapes of hearts. So, and you can see I keep all the extras in the packaging because it's like, ooh, if I just want a little gold heart or a little black one or whatever, they're all in there. I can just, don't even have to die cut. So for these ones, I did the same thing I did with the mushrooms. I just blended the fired brick and Victorian velvet oxide inks onto a scrap of cardstock, die cut it with these hearts, and then I'm going to adhere 3 of them to my card front. And then on the inside of the card, where I stamped that same leaf edge stamp with the antique linen distress oxide ink, I'm going to adhere the medium mushroom. I stuck the small one on the front just cause, and then I adhered the medium one, and I had 3 little hearts left over. So I was like, perfect, can stick those onto the inside. So I just adhered those into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. So that just kind of finishes off the inside. And then, of course, I'm going to add a little bit of bling. I consider the oxide spray to be my splatter. I was going to add like actual splatter, but I didn't. Shocking. I know. I got interrupted so many times doing this, and yeah, it was just my life. My life's chaos. It is what it is. So I just took some of this bling. This is some honeybee little self-adhesive rhinestones. So I just peel these off with my little die pick and just stick them into place. So they look really dark on camera, but in real life, you know, I just chose colors that went with these papers, etc. So peeled those off, stuck them onto this card front, and then once that was done, I'm just going to adhere this card front to the card base with craft tacky glue. You could use some foam tape and like add even more dimension, but it just depends on my mood. But yeah, once this is adhered, you won't be able to see the card front that I didn't like, because that's on the back. It gets glued down. We're good to go. So once I get that adhered, this card is complete. And like I mentioned earlier, I'll have a link below the video to my blog post, which will have a link to the color throwdown challenge. I will also, of course, have a supply list. I'll link to all of the supplies I used. It'll be picture links in the blog post. It'll all be listed in the description box below the video, so you can just expand that and check that all out if you are interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. It genuinely makes a huge difference. It tells the robot overlords you guys are liking what you're seeing, because they run my entire career. Literally, it's all algorithms and robots. But anyway, subscribe if you haven't. I would love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.